Have you ever swam across a river before?
No, I'm not planning to.
Have you ever jumped on the back of a wyvern?
Yeah.
No.
Next, we're speaking with Mateusz Tomaszkiewicz. Matt is known for his quest design on Cyberpunk 2077 and Witcher 3, as well as being the game director on Thronebreaker. He worked with Incredible Dream early on in this project to develop the Kinfire Chronicles IP. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Hey there, Seekers. This is Ajima with Incredible Dream. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. I hope you're enjoying the interview. And speaking of enjoyment, I've got something special for Kinfire fans out there. Kinfire Delve! It's our new game series in the Kinfire world, and it's brought to you by the same brilliant minds that brought you Kinfire Chronicles. The first game is available for just $19.99, and in this game you're going to be battling the Master of the Well, Vainglory, in a game that's as much about tactics as it is about teamwork. It's a great game to play solo. It's a great game for couples. Go grab your copy today at your local game store, or you can go to kinfiredelve.com to get your adventure started. And while you're on the website, you can also find Kinfire Chronicles, add-ons for the game, and some new exclusive merch that we're going to be sharing soon. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Please keep sharing your feedback and questions here on YouTube, on BDG, on Discord. We're reading all of it, and now back to the show.
Designing an IP for a new game from scratch can be super daunting and intimidating. So what was the approach that you took when coming on and starting to design the IP for Kinfire?
Well, okay, so first of all, I didn't do it by myself. I had help from one of ex-writers from CD Projekt as well, Jakub Szamałek, and he's just really talented and a good friend of mine, so we had a great time together. And the approach we took, we tried to understand what we want to actually achieve with this setting. And then once we established that with the team at Incredible Dream, we have set out to basically come up with ideas that would complement that. So we ended up going for like a setting which is fantasy, and it's set in like during a cataclysmic event. So the process was really like starting off with the needs and like what are the requirements for the first game set in this setting. Yeah, and we went from there.
Awesome. So obviously with interactive storytelling, there's going to be a whole new set of challenges. So what was kind of the biggest challenges or challenge that you had to navigate in developing this IP with its interactive quality?
Because the first project in this IP is a board game, I never actually worked on a board game before, so we had to rethink some things and how we do them. I only had experience with video games before, and of course this setting, like it's built to accommodate for many different media. It does not necessarily only board games, but there were some challenges that were kind of similar to video games. So the way of approaching storytelling that is non-linear, because of course players can make choices, and you know, what does this mean for the storytelling? If you want to tell a specific story, where does it end up? If you include all the choices they made along the way, and at the same time, how to make these choices feel consequential. Second, I would say every project has its own set of requirements in order to make the gameplay fun. So you want the setting to support these. You don't want it to make it difficult for the gameplay designers, right? They need specific things, like, you know, they want to have specific characters, like specific types of interaction with the game. So we try to accommodate for that. And on top of that, you know, like going back to choice and consequence, it's also the matter of like keeping track of all of those so it doesn't become too convoluted, and so people actually understand the consequences of their choices in the game.
Absolutely. So obviously Kinfire has an amazing game mechanics. It's really, really fun to play, but it's also got incredible lore. It's a beautiful world. It's a great IP. So what are the things that you hope that players really take away from and are really wowed by when it comes to the IP and the world of Kinfire?
So we focused on like what makes the setting unique, what makes it stand out from other fantasy IPs out there. And I think like one of its biggest strengths is the concept of this cataclysm that is plaguing this world. Basically, it allows you to experience a variety of different moods and themes, because the idea in general, as you know, is that there is this force that is transforming the world continuously, right? So every time you set out into the world, you can find, like, for example, that the laws of physics no longer work like they would normally, or maybe, you know, like something monumental have appeared in the horizon, right? And you want to investigate that. I think what it gives us is like this possibility for multitude of very interesting scenarios. And of course, on top of that, I personally like the stories that are relatable and characters that are relatable and down to earth. So even though there is this, you know, cosmic event happening, the stories themselves should be about people, and you should be able to relate to them. And you know, this is what excited me about working with Incredible Dream, because I think these stories are in there.
Well, I know a bunch of my other seekers also have some questions that they'd like to ask.
Yeah, just going off that thing you mentioned about rewriting tropes and everything, I was wondering if there's anything specific that you were really excited about getting to do with this world that you created, if there was anything that you knew you didn't want to do that other fantasy does, just if there's anything specific that you're really excited about from that.
Well, definitely we wanted to look into the fantasy races, because this is something that is like, I think everyone who ever read any fantasy book or played any fantasy game knows elves, dwarves, etc., etc. And I think we had some really cool concepts about these different races. I know that after I departed, there was already some more work on this subject, so I'm really excited about these changes as well. But from the time when I was still working on it, I really liked what we did with the elves specifically. So there were a few ideas that made them basically stand out. So for example, in this setting, the elves are nocturnal. So, you know, the sun is kind of like walking in the sun is painful to them, and we wanted it to be reflected in the way they build their like architecture. We wanted it to be reflected in their clothing, in their culture, you know.
Yeah, so when you're like world building something like the elves, is that expressed just like in the quests, or as we move through the story, will we learn more about this background, or like sort of just like by like symbiotically, like through experiencing the campaign?
Yes, definitely. Like, well, first step was like coming up with the ideas for the world itself, and we were thinking like where we could actually show them, right? So there are specific quests where you can meet characters that, you know, show these different traits. Of course, it's shown in the characters that you're playing as well. There is a lot of, I would say, space for showing more of that stuff, but we did our best to showcase the key features, so to speak.
Why do you think that such immersive world building in a board game, which doesn't always have, you know, such a built-out lore, such as the architecture of just one class or one race, why do you think that's important to separating Kinfire from other games out there, especially in the fantasy category?
I would say first because fantasy genre itself is like very saturated market. Like there are a lot of fantasy games and other media out there, and you know, making it stand out, it's really important because this is the first thing that you judge it by you know, by looking at its art, by reading like little tidbits of it, like maybe looking at trailers. You know, this is your first interaction with it, right? Second, I personally believe in like searching for quality, and I think this is an important part of it, right? Like some people might say that the mechanics are the most important part of a board game, right? But I would say a game which has perfect mechanic but very like uninteresting framing of it, like narrative framing, it will not captivate me for long probably. But if it has a very nice theming and if it's like very well framed, I will be interested in it, and I will keep on playing it, and I'll probably buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were one of the characters in Kinfire, who are you most like then?
I'm probably closest to Roland. Because I'm very introverted, and you know, I believe in science, and you know, I like learning new things. But I think I like all of them, to be honest.
Roland's a good one.
Yeah. Have you ever swam across a river before?
No,
Okay.
I'm not planning to.
Have you ever jumped on the back of a wyvern?
Yeah.
No.
Only in a D&D campaign, maybe.
Oh yeah, actually, that's a good point. I might have at some point.
Well, I'll let you save that move for your next campaign. Don't worry, I won't take any credit for it. But thank you so much for talking with us today. It's been so great hearing about the world and the lore. I totally agree with you. A game can have amazing mechanics, but the world is what makes it so immersive and what makes you coming back to that game time and time again. So it's beautiful, and we've all been super immersed in it just off the 2 tutorial quests, essentially, and we're having a blast. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me again.
Bye.